This video will show you how to install the Microsoft SQL Server 2017 Express. Double-click the downloaded installation file and select Custom. Confirm the license terms. Here you can customize the installation. It depends on the purpose you are using the SQL Server for. In our example, we don't need the machine learning services and we don't need SQL Server replication. And this is also not required. However, we need the client tools connectivity. This is very important. You might want to enable the SQL Server browser so the client manager can find the server automatically. If FIREWALL for Mac is involved, you must change the authentication mode to mixed mode. This is very important. Then specify a password for the administrator account. Here we can review if everything is fine. The Microsoft SQL Server is now properly installed. If you plan to use FIREWALL for Mac with your SQL Server installation, additional configuration is required. Please open the SQL Configuration Manager. Click the Windows icon and type in SQL and look for the Configuration Manager item. Make sure that the TCP protocol is enabled. Repeat this for the server network configuration. Right-click and select Enable if it is disabled. Then double-click this TCP IP entry and switch to IP addresses. Scroll down and define a TCP port for the entry IP all. Then go to Server Services and restart the SQL Server. That's it. To configure your firewall for use with the SQL Server, open the firewall settings. Press the Windows key and type in Firewall. Select Windows Defender Firewall. In earlier Windows versions, it is called Windows Firewall. Select Advanced Settings. Click on Inbound Rule. And click on New Rule. Select Port. And then enter the port you have specified during the Microsoft SQL Server configuration. Click on Next. That's it. If you use your Microsoft SQL Server with mixed mode authentication, or if you plan to use FIREWALL for Mac with your SQL Server, you must install the Microsoft SQL Management Studio to perform additional configuration. Download the Management Studio from the Microsoft website and double-click the downloaded installation file to install it on your computer. After installation, press the Windows key and start typing Management. And the SQL Server Management Studio should show up in the list. If you plan to use FIREWALL for Mac, you must use the mixed mode or SQL Server authentication. Then log in with the credentials you have defined during the SQL Server installation. Then add the users of the FIREWALL clients who shall use FIREWALL. Repeat this step for all other users and close the Management Studio. Now install the downloaded FIREWALL SQL Client Manager setup. If your setup includes FIREWALL for Mac, check this option. Then enter the SQL Server Administrator password you have defined during your SQL Server installation. define a FIREWALL administrator account. This account restricts access to the FIREWALL SQL manager. If the SQL Server browser service is running, the FIREWALL SQL client manager should find the server automatically. We recommend to keep the default file path for the phrase database and the license database. FIREWALL creates the databases. Grant the client manager access to your network. The FIREWALL SQL client manager can generate a configuration file which tells all the clients in your network the network address of the SQL server. It will be created on the desktop. This can later be used with the FIREWALL clients. If you already purchased licenses, you can register them in the SQL client manager. Click on the License Key tab and copy and paste the list of license keys into this input box and select Update. Install the regular FIREWALL clients on the workstations. If you're using Microsoft SQL Server, you don't need this option. Make sure that this option is enabled because FIREWALL requires to access the network when using an SQL server. Now open the FIREWALL client. To connect the client to an SQL server, click on File, select Open and select Connect to SQL Database. If the SQL Server browser service is running, it should find the SQL server automatically. If this doesn't work, you can use the configuration file which has been created earlier by the FIREWALL SQL Client Manager. To use that file, click on Load Configuration File and load it from here. Then click on OK. FIREWALL then prompts you whether you wish to load the SQL database as an extra phrase source, or you can replace the existing local phrase file. Let's opt to replace the file. The local phrase file is unloaded and the SQL database is loaded. You can then start to create new phrases or to import existing data.